Hey Debbie, so good to
Hi.
be with you.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to this talk.
Me too. Nature as a teacher is our theme today, and I'm really excited to dive deeper into this with you.
Mm,
Um, yeah, maybe we can start by just sharing a little bit about what your connection to nature is.
yeah, it's a really good question. And I, as we were pausing just before this, I just felt like trees. Um, and I think I'm really pulled to forests and trees. There's just something when I'm near that. My daughter calls me a tree hugger, but her version. I do hug trees sometimes, but I think it kind of comes back to when I was really young. I grew up in like a small countryside town, and I would literally spend hours in nature. I'd leave in the morning. I don't even remember going back for lunch, but I'm guessing I did. But I would be out playing in forests, making like little huts, playing in the little rivers or swimming in the river. Um, so nature it just was part of me almost growing up. That it's also my playground as an adult as well. And it's one of my resources as an adult to regulate myself. And yeah, there's an awness when I think of nature. There's an insignificance that you feel. All your worries just fade away when I sit in nature. So
Mm.
there's a
I can very much relate. I can very much relate to that, especially the trees. I think like it's also very dependent on in which kind of environment you grew up. For me, it was also definitely the German forest, so I feel very connected, as you said, like to the trees. But I also have friends, like a friend from me that comes from Italy, for example, and he grew up close to the sea. And for him, it's like as soon as he connects to water or to a body of water, he immediately feels this like grounding and reconnection and like as you also mentioned this calmness of the nervous system
yeah,
that almost immediately starts to happen and you also mentioned the awe and the fascination that you have for nature. What would you say is like what fascinates you most about being in nature?
yeah. It's strange because behind you on my screen, I have the picture of the mountains, the Swiss mountains. And it's like nature is right there. It takes me back to basics, where you let go of any pains or wounds, any ego. There's this real partnership. Um, there's a grounding, there's a calmness, there's a regeneration almost. Uh, it strips away everything that you think is important and reminds you of what really is important about life and humanity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and looking at our theme today, nature being our teacher, how would you say that that relates to that theme?
Oh, it teaches me every single day. And I think you need to allow it to teach you. You need to be open to the teaching, I think. Right outside my window right now, I have this massive blossom tree. And it's just reminding me, I look out and I stare at this tree that every season changes. And right now I look out and I'm like, the word abundance just came into my mind. And I'm like, I can almost even smell it as I hear. And it just reminds me what, where in my life is abundance. So I think it's the metaphors sometimes that nature can bring. Uh, when you allow and open up to that, that it can be a real teacher. But there is so many instances of nature being a teacher, um, that I could keep going on and on.
Hmm. I think one experience I remember from our time in Kenya together when we did this class, Nature as a Teacher, and we were like walking through nature and really tuning in. I think like we're so often caught up in our like mind or in the doing of things, and then if we allow ourselves to become really present and slow down and really experience nature with all of our senses, those are the moments when we also start to see the little things, like start to see the colors in the grasses, the different flowers, hear the animals, the birds chirping. And I think also those are the moments when I suddenly become aware that there's an infinite amount of inspiration that lies in nature. And I think so many of the creations that humans brought to this world are very much inspired by nature. And we are also part of nature, like we belong to nature. Um, and so, yeah, I hold this memory very dear of us walking there and just being really present. And I think that's also part of how nature informs our coaching, or what yeah, I draw as a relation between the two. Yeah, what else is there
Mm.
that connects nature to coaching that comes up for you?
Well, I love where you've taken that, but it could be really, I'll often go into the forest, and I've gone in there with clients or with a group, and just whatever is in nature at that time. And I remember a time like the wind came up, and rustled through the leaves, and we paused and we could feel it on our faces, even our arms. It, well, wasn't just a gentle breeze, it was quite a bit more. And it was like a question waiting to be asked: what needs to move in our lives? What needs to move away? What do we need to let go of? What needs to be blown away? So I think it's using nature to inform the questions, just using any part of nature that comes up, as the blossoms fall from the tree. What parts of us do we need to let go? What needs
Mm.
to bud more? Um, yeah, from a tree, I could just keep going with these wonderful questions that I'm just like, as you say, really inspired by what nature provides us. And I think there's also different ways of using our senses then around nature if we're out in nature with our clients, because then it's not just the visual, but what do we hear? And you talked about that, about the different birds, and even like lying on the ground and putting your ear closer to the ground. What are we hearing? And really listening at a deeper level, um, or touching the soil. What's that bringing up for you in your life as you touch the soil? What does that feel like? And the different textures that we can experience in nature: grass and the bark and the soil and water, sand. All of these have different reminders or different things that inform us. If we hold a question or a topic, um, taste even.
Yeah. And it's also so individual and unique what everybody connects to or relates to the certain images that come up if we're talking about elements, for example. Also, what different imagery or also sensations are related to that for every person has a different connection. And while you were talking, I also had this thought of like how nature as a teacher inspires us on different layers. Like there is the layer of the physical, like the effect that it has on the body, the effect that it has on the nervous system that we mentioned in the beginning, that it has this immediate relaxation and calming down if you're really arriving fully present in nature. And there's like so many studies around this. But then it also has the emotional layer of like bringing up memories, but also this like emotional regulation. You can just be in nature with whatever is inside of you, and there's like nobody to judge you or to shame you or to restrict you. Like you can just fully express and let it all be there. But then there's also this mental sphere of nature being a teacher in terms of inspiring us with the imagery and the metaphors that we can draw from that, from how you just mentioned, like the wind being a means of letting go of certain things that no longer serve us, or the earth being this stable holding entity where we can really surrender into. And I think it's just so fascinating. And I think that's also what makes it maybe hard to really grasp that topic as nature as a teacher, because it has so many different angles and entry points that we can use. And even on the more spiritual level, the cycles and the rhythm that you mentioned, where we're going through different stages of life and realizing that death and the closing is as important as new beginnings,
Mm.
and that there is this natural cycle of things starting and things ending, and that it's about honoring all the aspects. And I think it came for me also with realizing, oh my God, also winter has beautiful sides to it. Like, I was always a spring person. I loved the blossoming and, like nature coming back to life. But then I realized actually there is beauty in all these different stages, because each stage has their very unique attributes and teachings. And if we allow us to flow with nature, things emerge and die and new things emerge, like all by themselves, without us necessarily needing to control, because nature is uncontrollable anyways. And so, yeah, it's a very rich topic.
It is. Wow. And you went into depth and there was so much you said there. I love the seasons and we all have a natural, I think, propensity to one or the other or one of these seasons. And as you said, spring was something that you loved. And what I love is like going to the same part in nature in different seasons, because it is so different in different seasons. And just like the tree outside my window right now is blossoming, in a week's time it will be empty. Um, in autumn, the leaves go this beautiful red color. But again, it only lasts for about a week. And otherwise, I don't really notice this tree. But, I think the seasons also reflect us. And so when we are, as a coach, what do we need for ourselves as a coach in these different seasons? Um, but also what do our clients need in their different seasons? So it has so much to inform us as coaches. Where am I needing to bring some new possibilities in, or what do I need to let go of now or hibernate into? Because as coaches, we're never static either. We're always learning and growing and maybe changing our direction slightly. So we might say, okay, I'm going to stop these clients. I'm going to move towards these clients. Um, and that's our seasons of change that happen as well, just like in nature. And I think when you really look at nature in these different seasons, it can inform us of so much, to remind us to take these seasons as something that needs to happen. And we do need to slow down sometimes. and have a break and curl up and relax. It's important, as is going at, real enjoyment full on is as important. So yeah, I love the season part.
And I also think another connection for me is the diversity, like the huge variety that there is in nature. And if we bring this to coaching and understand that each client is so unique, as is every snowflake, as is every flower, even though it might be a similar group, similar category, still every flower is super unique and has their own little attributes that makes them unique. But then also understanding what does this specific plant or flower need to really blossom and to come to life. And
Mm.
also understanding that sometimes it's not about being the gardener. I know that there is like discussions in Germany about how much you should interfere in the forest, and just recently they found out that you should actually let the forest just be,
Yeah.
and that this is the most healthy way to stop controlling and to start just like nurturing it in a way that you just let it go through these cycles of evolution, and that this is how nature naturally becomes the most sustainable, the most fruitful, the most rich. But I think as humans, we sometimes have this tendency of, oh, I need to control the process. I know it better. And I think this is for me also a very nice reminder, also for our coaching, that as coaches, it's not our role to know or to solve or to control, but rather to be the witness of a person really blossoming and growing and unfolding, and to allow them to gain these deeper insights about themselves by just being really present with what they bring and what they have to offer to the space.
Wow, that's so so powerful, because I really I know forests that have been allowed to just be, and the beauty in there. There's a real grounded sense when you walk through that forest. So yeah, that and when you really elevate and support a person, you can feel that groundedness and aliveness just growing as a coach. Um, and equally, I can feel into a forest. My forest right now hurts me because they've been felling down the trees. And it's just like, oh, there's part of me that's like, oh, and it reminds me a little bit of humanity right now. It's like we're cutting off parts of ourselves. Um, and there's nobody there helping. And that it's almost like as coaches, like we can help rejuvenate the forests or humanity even, and uplifting them and helping them grow again, but in a way that we're walking beside them. We're not sticking the trees back together, but we're walking and like guiding and nurturing people to grow and elevate into their own beauty. Uh, yeah, that's just so powerful.
And also, I think like the for me it was quite a big shift when I was in Colombia, and a man really inspired me because he was bringing to my consciousness that nature is everywhere. Like you don't have to go to the forest to be in nature. Like even me living in a city of Berlin, I am in nature because nature is all around us, and it's not like reduced to the beach or the forest. I think remembering that we are nature and that we can always connect to nature no matter where we are in each moment is so powerful, because through just bringing this to consciousness, but also potentially using images of moments when you were very present in nature, it allows me to, even in my working environment, which is mostly digital, within a few seconds, really come to a place that feels way closer to my core, to my own nature, to my heartbeat and heart rhythm, and like the self
Yeah.
that is sometimes then, as you said, masked in these social contacts or in everyday life, gets lost sometimes, but it's always there. it's always here, as is nature. It's always around us. And I think that was really
Mm.
important for me to realize.
Yeah. Yeah, because we often think as nature just as plants and trees. And I think what you're reminding us of is like that's animals as well. I've got a cat, so just that having that presence with a human or an animal can be equally as powerful. Um, and you spoke about images. I often will use like cards or images to focus in on in group coaching, for instance. But even, and there is studies that basically show that the stress does reduce even by looking at a picture of nature. So there is something so regulating about that. It's one of the reasons I have this vista of the Swiss mountains as my screensaver. Because there is a relaxing element. It really does regulate your system by looking out. But also, look outside here and I've got trees I can see, and I'm in a little city, and it could be just a plant in your office. Or it could just be walking down the road and just sitting outside so you can hear the birds singing, you can feel the wind in your face. So you don't have to go to a huge forest or into mountains or to the sea. It is, as you say, all around us. And even as we coach, we can walk in that space as well with our clients. So it doesn't have to be up and remove. It can just be let's walk outside for 10 minutes and see what happens.
Yeah, and it can be also really like individualized or customized to
Mm.
what's needed in a specific moment. Because while you were speaking and I was looking at the mountains behind you, I was like, wow, yeah, those mountains, I would definitely bring that up, for example, when I need a sense of stability, of like this, wow, there is something that's solid as a rock that just gives me this like, you're safe, you're connected, you're calm. But then, for example, if you would want to connect to a different attribute, like joy or lightness or whatever it is, like there is such a variety of metaphors and imagery and senses that you can tap into based on what what you need in that moment, but also like exploring with your client, like what is it that they are most longing for or most in need of, and what imagery or what natural aspect allows them to connect to this certain quality that might be really helpful for them in a certain moment.
Mm, yeah, yeah, because there's just a widening that happens um, by that imagery. Because, yeah, when you said the mountains, and I know the picture behind me, but I had like a very different feeling from you. So it's interesting. Yeah. I think in coaching to allow our client to open up to what that image means for them as well. Well, we can take from the image as a coach, but our client needs to be invited to what does that image look, bring to you as you look at it when you think of this topic. Um, because we can have a very different take on that picture behind me.
Hmm.
And both are right. That's
Hmm.
the beauty of it and the beauty of nature.
And
Um,
that's also, I think, the beauty of nature as a teacher, that it's like it's limitless. There's
mm,
like a limitless amount of possibilities to resource yourself or to let yourself be inspired by nature. And it also allows us to expand our creativity. Um, and it's a little bit like everybody uses AI in such a different way.
yeah.
And it really reflects their creative process. And I think nature or like the inspiration by nature is similar.
Mm,
Like everybody sees it differently, everybody experiences it differently, but ultimately it serves as an expansion of your own creative expression.
I'd say also it allows us to really become present there's a real presencing that happens when we're in nature, or even focusing on nature, because you're connecting with it. You know, even if it's to pause and look at the image, you're like, okay, there's a presencing that happens. What does that image create for me? Or outside, what is that feeling I'm feeling as the wind comes on me? So there's a real attuning to one, what's the client feeling right now, but also for the client to feel into that space. So I think nature really allows that presencing to happen for both coach and client at the same time.
Mm. And this is also most of the time where the magic happens, right? Like when we're both really right here, right now, allowing whatever wants to come through or come into the space and let this guide us. I think that's most of the time where I experience the deepest shifts and insights and yeah, just being able to hold it by feeling the relaxing um, space that nature creates because we're never too heavy or weird or
Mm.
anything to be held by nature. Like we're always held.
Very much held by nature. It's where I went when my father died. I went into the forest and I must have sat there for like hours and hours and hours. And I felt fully held. I felt I could fully express um, and say whatever without being judged, without anything else. There was just a freedom in being there, um, which I gave myself permission for. But, you know, with clients, we are able to create that space as well. Um, which I think is just, you know, even for ourselves, if we're in a bad space and we know we have clients coming, that could be a way to help us as coaches to recenter and get present and readiness for our client. But it's also a place that we can go when those emotions are really huge, like in grieving. Um, it can be such a wonderful healing and holding space.
Ah, so beautiful and so many different tunnels we could go deeper into. Maybe for like wrapping up our conversation today, what else do you feel is important to say, if anything, related to nature and coaching with nature?
I think maybe also making sure our clients feel comfortable in that space, because it's often a public space, and not to make any assumptions that our clients will be comfortable in that space, because everybody has a different relationship to natural spaces. So there's an ethical consideration here as coaches to co-partner with your client around that space, um, knowing that everybody's reality is different, and we have a different relationship to it. Uh, but also knowing we can even do it inside with pictures, and it can still create some wonderful uh, imageries and metaphors to support our clients.
Such an important note to end on. Yes, all the choice to the client, and it's our um yeah, gift and service also to allow that space for the client to express what makes them feel comfortable in terms of connecting to nature. Ah, thank you so much. This was a beautiful, very deep, rich conversation.
Thank you. I feel like we've been in nature doing this all with our examples, and just the presencing we brought into the different topics we covered. So thank you, Eve.